lives we are able to save. In an interview to a newspaper, the Prime Minister says India will become a global manufacturing hub on its own strengths. Says Atmanirbhar Bharat is not just about competition but also about competence. Says free food grain and pulses to 800 million people for 8 months is a program without parallel in human history. An estimated 54.4% voter turnout despite COVID-19 fears registered in the first phase of Bihar Assembly elections. The highest voting of 63.33% recorded in Chainpur Assembly constituency. An incident-free voting day sees voters following the COVID-19 protocol. Campaigning for the second phase of Bihar elections continues to gather pace, with Prime Minister Modi addressing a series of election rallies. The Prime Minister says only Nitish Kumar can give a corruption-free government to the state. Congress leader Rahul Gandhi to address his poll rallies in the state. Prime Minister Modi to participate in Ekta Diwas celebrations at Gujarat's Kevadia on 31st of October on the occasion of birth anniversary of Sardar Patel. Prime Minister Modi to also inaugurate various projects under integrated development of Kevadia on 30th and 31st of October. Enforcement Directorate arrests M. Shivashankar, the former Principal Secretary of Kerala Chief Minister in a money laundering case in connection with the gold smuggling case in Kochi. Shivashankar will be produced before a local court in Ernakulam today. The Health Ministry says India's average daily COVID-19 fatality is continuously decreasing in the past 6 weeks and steadily following case fatality rate of 1.5% at present positions India globally as the country with one of the lowest case fatality rate. Attributes it to timely hospitalization, the provision of standard of care prescribed in the National Treatment Protocol, the use of non-invasive oxygen and the use of steroids and anticoagulants. In international news, French President Emmanuel Macron announces that France will go back into a nationwide lockdown from 30th October to try to contain the rebound of COVID-19. Says new measures will mean people will have to stay in their homes except to buy the essential goods and seek medical attention. Hello and good morning. You're watching DD India with me, Nancy Kohli. Our top story, Prime Minister Narendra Modi said we should assess our COVID-19 fight against the metric of how many lives we're able to save. In an interview to a newspaper, Prime Minister Modi has said that India will become a global manufacturing hub on its own strengths. He said Atmanirbhar Bharat is not just about competition but also about competence. Free food grain and pulses to 800 million people for 8 months is a program without a parallel in the human history. And some of the highlights of Prime Minister's interview to the newspaper, Prime Minister Modi speaking on the fight against COVID-19 and saying in fact how we should assess our COVID-19 fight against the metric of how many lives we are able to save, and also our case fatality ratio is among the lowest in the world and the deaths per million is much lower than what is seen in many developed nations. India followed a preemptive, proactive, graded whole of government and whole of society approach to tackle the pandemic. He also says, I quote, I believe we should use this phase of slowing down of cases not to celebrate but to further strengthen our resolve, our behavior and our systems. Critics want to deny people their credit for the tremendous fight against COVID-19 in order to discredit the government. And Prime Minister Modi has also in fact spoken on vaccine development. In that interview, he says, we have shown the world that we have scale, sensitivity and reliability in the pharma sector, and it will only go from strength to strength from here onwards. We are confident, he said, that once we have the vaccine, we can reach every person in India in a very quick time. And Prime Minister Modi also spoke on the $5 trillion economy. He says going by a track record and continuing reforms, people have the confidence in our abilities to reach the target. Today, our country is optimistic of the future. It's optimistic of reaching the $5 trillion target. And in fact, Prime Minister Modi has also spoken on the reforms. He says free food train and pulses to 800 million people for 8 months is a program without a parallel in the human history. What's been lacking in Indian farming is commensurate return for all the blood and toil put in by our farmers. The new structure brought by these reforms will significantly increase the profitability of our farmers, Prime Minister said. He in fact also spoke about how the labour reform will ensure timely payment of wages and give priority to the occupational safety of the workers and also contributing to a better working environment. The 4 labour codes are meant to address the welfare of the labour while ensuring the ease of doing business for the industry. The last 6 years, he said, have seen the spirit of competitive and cooperative federalism in all our actions. So we are bringing you the highlights of Prime Minister's interview to a newspaper. And in fact, he's also spoken on Atmanirbhar Bharat, self-reliant India. He says, I feel the big push on investment and infrastructure that will become the driving force for recovery and growth. He says India will become a global manufacturing hub on its own strengths. Our effort is not to become some country's alternative, but to become a country which offers unique opportunities. Atmanirbhar Bharat is not just about competition, but also about competence. It's not just about dominance, but about dependability. It's not about looking within, but about looking out for the world. A self-reliant India is also a reliable friend for the world. We'll continue our reforms drive to ensure India becomes the world's most preferred investment destination. India is keen to be a part of global value chains and wants to do trade deals, but they have to be fair and non-discriminatory. And since India would be providing access to a large market, the agreements must be reciprocal and balanced. And let's now go across to our correspondent Arun Sharma, who is joining us with more perspective on Prime Minister Modi's interview to a newspaper. Arun, good morning. In fact, we have clearly highlighted, the big takeaways, the big talking points from that interview of the Prime Minister to a newspaper. And in fact, he's spoken on many issues, Arun. As far as the important issues concerning the country, the economy, as far as tackling COVID-19 pandemic, once again, in fact, prioritizing and listing out government's priorities and achievements and assuring the nation what's been done and what will continue to take place.
That's right, Nancy. Now, Prime Minister, in his interview to Economic Times, has clearly mentioned and has spoken on various aspects, right from Atmanirbhar Bharat to various reforms that have been undertaken recently, and of course on the vaccine development part. But the big takeaway under the Atmanirbhar Bharat umbrella is that Prime Minister Narendra Modi gave a strong message not only to the business community, but yes, to the entire world. And he has mentioned this point that India is not looking to become an alternative to any other country, because the questions were being raised globally as well, that is India now the next destination after China? So Prime Minister Narendra Modi has clearly mentioned this point, that India is looking for becoming a reliable partner of the countries. We are looking for trusted partnerships as far as business are concerned. And of course, we are not looking for becoming any alternative to any other country. On the contrary, India is looking forward to become self-reliant for its own. And of course, it wants to become an important partner as far as global supply chains are concerned. So it's an important message from Prime Minister Narendra Modi that India is not looking for becoming any alternative, but it is looking forward to become an Atmanirbhar or self-reliant, so that it can contribute as far as global supply chains are concerned. Second important part is that Prime Minister Narendra Modi, of course, mentioned about various reforms undertaken in last 5 to 6 months. Now, that also includes Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Anna Yojana to various agriculture recently, and of course we know this fact that the labor bills primarily that's being passed by the parliament. So this of course gives an important message to the world that yes, India is on a path to reform going forward, be it the agriculture sector, be it the labor sector. So yes, India has taken various other initiatives as far as these sectors are concerned.
Yes, right. Arun, in fact, one of the important subjects that Prime Minister Modi has also, in fact, spoken on is the vaccine development, even as the whole world is battling COVID-19 pandemic, and is once again, through this interview, assured the people of this country and people of the entire world that how India is leading the way forward as far as, more research and development in pharmaceutical and particularly in the vaccine development is concerned.
Yes, on the vaccine development issue, Prime Minister Narendra Modi clearly said that India is primarily has worked as a global pharma hub as well as far as capacities are concerned. And India is known as a global pharma hub as far as, supply chains of various pharmaceutical medicines are concerned. Even during the COVID pandemic, India supplied hydroxychloroquine medicine to more than 100 countries. And the kind of capacity that India has as far as vaccine or primarily production of vaccine is concerned, that's primarily incredible. And in that context, Prime Minister Narendra Modi said that we are just waiting for a vaccine to come to us. And of course, as far as development is concerned, the moment a vaccine comes to us, then of course the production will be done at the mass level. And of course, we know this fact that it will reach to each and every Indian going forward. And earlier also, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has mentioned this point. That an equitable distribution will be done as far as vaccine is concerned. Priority will be given to the healthcare workers and of course various other key stakeholders, and equitable distribution who needs it on priority, that will be done. Yes.
Sure. Yes, Arun, in fact, also, India's fight against COVID-19 is concerned. We're, of course, seeing the case fatality rate. Well, that's the lowest, in the world, India's tally that is. And in fact, in the last weeks, it's only gone down, steadily declining. So that's, all right, we'll try and reconnect with the correspondent Arun in some time from now, and in fact get you more updates on that as far as Prime Minister Modi's interview to the newspaper is concerned. He's spoken on many, in fact, important subjects as far as Atmanirbhar Bharat or self-reliant India is concerned. Okay, I'm being told we have a correspondent back with us. Arun, are you back with us? All right. Yeah. Yes. Please go ahead.
So that's what I was mentioning, that Prime Minister Narendra Modi has spoken on various aspects, be it from Atmanirbhar Bharat to various reforms undertaken. And of course, as far as vaccine development is concerned, I mean, as far as reforms are concerned, we know this fact that under the Atmanirbhar Bharat ambit, a massive 20 lakh crore of package was given. Yes. And the focus was completely on the MSME sector as to how can MSMEs of our country can be strengthened. Yes, they were also focused on the other key areas so that, the sector primarily can get up once again after the slowdown. But yes, a major focus was on the manufacturing sector and of course the MSME sector. So massive package was announced. That's number one. Number two is the kind of reforms that have been taken by the Parliament recently, that includes the agriculture reforms, number one, and of course the labor reforms that have been undertaken by the Parliament. Now these two bills primarily will be a game changer for the farmers and on the other side for the laborers of our country as well. We know this fact that as far as agriculture sector is concerned, the government's focus is to double the farmers' income by 2022. And as of now, as far as the agriculture reforms are concerned, it gives more power to the farmers of our country. And that's the reason these kind of reforms will play an important role, as far as doubling their income. Last but not the least, as you asked earlier, Nancy, it's about the vaccine development part. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has clearly mentioned that an equitable distribution will be done. And, it will reach to each and every Indian citizens going forward once the vaccine is in place, because India has large capacities, massive capacities as far as production of vaccine is concerned. So it's an important statement from Prime Minister Narendra Modi as far as this interview is concerned.
Absolutely. And in fact, as far as India's fight against COVID-19 is concerned, well, it's clearly shown the way forward to the world, because India's case fatality rate is the lowest among the world, and it's only declining in the past 6 weeks, Arun. And that's clearly a big boost to India's fight against COVID-19.
Absolutely. But even though after all these statistics that we are listing on a daily basis, Prime Minister Narendra Modi said that it is no time to celebrate these numbers.
Oh, yes.
It's time to be more cautious. We can't, compromise even at this point in time. So Prime Minister clearly mentioned that yes, the case fatality ratio is close to 1.5%. This is again the lowest in the entire world. And of course, as far as the recovery rates are concerned, we are achieving towards the 90% rate of the recovery rate. So that means every 100 out of every 100 patients, 90 patients have been recovered. So that's a massive achievement for the country like India. The kind of health infrastructure, health equipment that were provided to each and every states, and the kind of coordination that was being witnessed between center and states as far as fight against COVID is concerned. This also shows the kind of commitment that India is moving towards the path or moving ahead in order to combat COVID-19. But the important message that Prime Minister Narendra Modi has given as far as fight against COVID-19 is concerned, that there are critics who are criticizing these numbers as well. But yes, they are actually criticizing those 130 crore Indians who have actually worked hard to defeat the COVID-19 as of now.
Absolutely.
Yes, 1.5 CFR is really noteworthy, and it is lowest in the world. So that's a big achievement for a country like India.
Oh yes, absolutely. And in fact, Prime Minister Modi, through that interview, hailing the contribution of the health workers there and everyone who's worked tirelessly and immensely as far as tackling COVID-19 pandemic in the country is concerned. Well, today we have the lowest case fatality rate in the entire world. Arun, also important, a mention that he made on the subject of self-reliant India, Atmanirbhar Bharat, and when he said it was very important because he said it's not about competition but about competence. We have to be competent to compete in the entire world, and also sending a very clear, unambiguous message that India is keen to be a part of the global value chains and wants to do trade deals, but they have to be fair and non-discriminatory. Arun, are you with us? All right, we'll try and reconnect with the correspondent Arun as far as Prime Minister Modi's interview to the newspaper is concerned, and we will in fact be discussing more on these big takeaways and the big talking points. We'll keep our focus on that, but moving on now to our next big focus, and that was in fact all the developments from poll-bound Bihar. Now, Bihar went to the polls on Wednesday in the first phase, marking the beginning of the first mass election since the COVID-19 pandemic struck the country. Polling was held on 71 out of 243 seats in the state. An estimated 54.4% voter turnout was registered in the first phase of the Bihar Assembly elections. The voter turnout increased at several places within a few hours of commencement of polling. The highest voting of 63.33% was recorded in Chainpur Assembly constituency. Incident-free voting day saw voters following the COVID-19 protocol laid down by the administration.
Those 4 districts went to the polls in the first phase of Bihar election, the biggest electoral exercise of its kind in the times of COVID-19 pandemic. A large number of voters cast their ballot in spite of the coronavirus. The enthusiasm was palpable among men and women, young and old alike. Long queues were seen at some places since early morning. Polling began at 7 a.m. for 71 seats in 16 districts. It closed at 6 in the evening at all places except the Naxal-affected areas. Barring some stray incidents of EVM malfunction, the polling passed off peacefully. Over 14 lakh people were eligible to vote at the more than 31,000 polling centres in 71 constituencies, which included 53 seats in Magad region and 18 in other areas. The Election Commission had made elaborate arrangements in the wake of the coronavirus pandemic. Care was taken to ensure the COVID-19 protocols such as a face mask, gloves and physical distancing. Thermal screening was done before a voter was allowed inside a polling booth.
अच्छी सरकार बने जो सभी लोगों के सुख दुख का ख्याल रखे, बिहार को एक ऊंचाई पर ले जाने का ध्यान रखे.
Voter turnout was low in the initial hours of polling, but it picked up by noon. Women and youth cast their ballot in large numbers.
बहुत अच्छा महसूस हो रहा है, क्योंकि अपना जो होता है कि मतदान का मतलब होता है कि अपने इच्छा से देना, वो हम किए.
बस अच्छा फील हो रहा है, फर्स्ट टाइम अपना सिटीजन होने का फर्ज अदा किया है.
बहुत ही अच्छा लग रहा है. पहले तो ऐसा लग रहा था कि भाई किसको दिया जाए, फिर जैसे जैसे जाना कि कौन सही है, उस हिसाब से दिया.
Central paramilitary force personnel were deployed in all Naxal-affected areas so that polling could take place freely, fairly and peacefully. Among the prominent names who cast their ballot in the first phase of election were Union Minister Giriraj Singh, who voted in Lakhisarai, Bihar Parliamentary Affairs and Rural Development Minister Shailesh Kumar at Munger, Prem Kumar at Gaya, Shreyasi Singh at Jamui, and former Bihar Chief Minister Jitan Ram Majhi at Gaya.
विकास पर चर्चा करने से लोग भाग रहे हैं। मैं चुनौती के साथ कहता हूं कि महागठबंधन के नेता कभी विकास पे चर्चा नहीं की। उन्होंने अपने पोस्टर से अपने पिता और माता को हटा दिया कि लोग 15 साल पहले का चेहरा न देखे। लेकिन अगर राजनीतिक विरासत आपको मिली है माता और पिता, तो स्वाभाविक है आपको उसका गुना भाग करके लोगों को बताना होगा।
जंगल राज वर्सेज विकास का मामला है। 2005 के पहले बिहार में जंगल राज था। जंगल राज की पुनरावृत्ति नहीं हो, इसके लिए बिहार की जनता एनडीए के पक्ष में वोट कर रही है। और दूसरी बात विकास है, तो ये 15 वर्षों में नीतीश कुमार के नेतृत्व में बिहार में बहुत विकास हुआ है। इस चीज़ को लोग कंटिन्यू रखना चाहते हैं कि विकास की गाड़ी जो पटरी पर चल रही है बेपटरी नहीं हो, इसलिए सभी एनडीए के पक्ष में लोग वोट करना चाह रहे हैं और वोट कर रहे हैं।
With the conclusion of phase 1 of election, focus shifts to the constituencies that will go to the polls in the next phase. With bureau inputs, DD India.
And campaigning for the second phase is in full swing. Prime Minister Modi on Wednesday addressed a rally at Raj Maidan in Darbhanga. Chief Minister Nitish Kumar was present on the occasion. Prime Minister Modi's second rally of the day was at Muzaffarpur. He began by reiterating that people must vote to ensure Bihar gets a government that puts development and good governance above all else. In a veiled reference to RJD's Tejaswi Yadav, Prime Minister said it was not the time to trust those who lack the experience or make hollow promises. Prime Minister Modi presented Nitish Kumar as the leader who brought Bihar out of Jungle Raj. The Prime Minister's last rally of the day was in Patna, where he began where he again hit out at the opposition. And let's now listen into the big takeaways from his rallies.
बिहार के लोग ये ठान चुके हैं, बिहार को लूटने वालों को, इस प्रतिभाशाली धरती के नौजवानों को, धोखा देने वालों को, बिहार की महिलाओं का जीना दूभर कर देने वालों को फिर हराएंगे। जिन लोगों की ट्रेनिंग समाज को बांटकर राज करने की हो, कमीशन खोरी की हो, वो बिहार के हित में कभी सोच नहीं सकते। ये वो लोग हैं जिनके राज में बिहार में अपराध इतना फला फूला कि लोगों का जीना मुश्किल हो गया था। पहले जो सरकार में थे उनका मंत्र रहा है, पैसा हजम, परियोजना खत्म।
Now, as the attention in the Bihar election shifts to phase 2 of polling, the main opposition, the Mahagathbandhan, has sharpened its attacks on the BJP-JDU alliance. Rahul Gandhi and Tejaswi Yadav campaign in different parts of the state. Meanwhile, the issue of firing in Munger is also taking a political turn. Chirag Paswan is pulling no punches when it comes to Chief Minister Nitish Kumar. And moving on now, to commemorate 145th birth anniversary of Sardar Patel on 31st of October as the Rashtriya Ekta Diwas, Prime Minister Modi will visit Kevadia in Gujarat to pay homage to the great leader at the Statue of Unity. Prime Minister Modi will participate at the Ekta Diwas parade and administer the Rashtriya Ekta pledge. Prime Minister will also witness a rifle drill by the female officers of the CRPF. As part of the Ekta Diwas celebrations, a cultural show of tribal heritage is also being organized at Kevadia. To mark the solemn occasion, Indian Air Force will perform a fly-past. Thereafter, Prime Minister Modi will interact with and address 428 officer trainees belonging to various civil services currently undergoing the 95th foundation course at the Lal Bahadur Shastri National Academy of Administration, Mussoorie, through video conference as a culmination of Arambh 2020. The theme of Arambh 2020 is Governance in India at 100, with 3 sub-themes. As a part of the integrated development of Kevadia, Prime Minister Modi to inaugurate various projects on the 30th and 31st of October. The Prime Minister will also launch the seaplane service connecting Statue of Unity in Kevadia with the Sabarmati riverfront in Ahmedabad. And shifting focus now to updates on COVID-19 from across the country. While India has achieved a significant milestone in its fight against COVID-19 as the national recovery rate has reached 90.9%. 56,480 patients have recovered in the last 24 hours, and with this the total number of recovered patients reached 73,15,989. The active caseload of the country also keeps decreasing and stands presently below 8%. The total active cases in the country stands at 6,03,687, which comprises merely 7.51% of the total reported cases. And India's average daily COVID-19 fatality is continuously decreasing since the past 6 weeks. According to the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, the steadily falling case fatality rate to 1.5% at present has positioned India globally as the country with one of the lowest case fatality rate. The Health Ministry has shared a graphical presentation of the average daily new deaths in the past 6 weeks. In the week starting 16 to 22nd September, India's average daily fatality was 1,165, while in the week of 27th October, it declined to 615. This is because of timely hospitalization, the provision of standard of care prescribed in the National Treatment Protocol, the use of non-invasive oxygen, the use of steroids and anticoagulants. Now, a study conducted by the Indian Council of Medical Research, the ICMR, has found out that the Bacillus calmette-guerin, the BCG vaccination, can be beneficial for elderly individuals in tackling the COVID-19 infection. And according to the study, the BCG vaccination induces enhanced innate and adaptive immunity in elderly individuals and may prove beneficial against COVID-19. In an ongoing study, the scientists at the council have found that the vaccine induces increased memory cells responses and total antibody production in the elderly. In some other news now, with international travel of more than 2.85 million people facilitated till now under the Vande Bharat mission and more than 15 million domestic travelers, India's civil aviation sector is flying high. The Phase 7 of Vande Bharat mission begins today with more destinations, flights and the bubble arrangements. The mission aims at bringing back stranded citizens from foreign countries amid the COVID-19 pandemic. Air India will operate 122 flights beginning today till 30th November. And in other news, the Enforcement Directorate, which is probing the money trail in the gold smuggling case, has arrested Chief Minister Pinarayi Vijayan's former Principal Secretary M. Shiv Shankar on Wednesday night. The officer had been questioned for more than 90 hours by various national agencies so far. Earlier on Wednesday, the High Court had rejected the anticipatory bail application filed by Shiv Shankar against the arrest from the Customs and the ED. After the bail application was rejected, within minutes, ED took custody of Shiv Shankar for interrogation from the Ayurved hospital in Trivandrum, where he was under treatment. He was then taken to Cochin, and after almost 6-hour-long interrogation, his arrest was registered by the ED. Shiv Shankar will be produced before a local court in Ernakulam today. Now moving on, French President Emmanuel Macron has announced a second national lockdown from 30th October to try to contain the rebound of COVID-19. The national lockdown in France will be till at least the end of November. And in an address to the nation on Wednesday, Macron said that under the new measures, people would only be allowed to leave home for essential work or medical reasons. However, schools will remain open with reinforced health measures. Also, public services will stay open. Factories, agricultural operations, building and public construction work will continue to function. And with that, it's a wrap on this edition of the news. Thanks for being with us.